Alright, so first up on the reviews is going to be these bad boys right here. These are the Rollerblade RB Solo Team 2016s. These are the first skates I've got, again, since probably like 2002. I think the last ones I got were either the first generation of Rems, back when they were called Remedies, or the Solomon STI. Really like both of those, by the way. So I've only had about a day and a half of rolling around on these. So I'm going to give kind of like an introductory review. Then here in about a month or two, I'll come back and talk about them a little bit more once I got them broken in and got a little bit more experience on them. So let's start with the top and just work our way on down. So first we got the blank liner. According to the internet, this is a really, really good liner, and putting them on, I can see why. It's really, really comfortable, really cushiony. I will say though, that these laces on the inside make this kind of a pain to take off and put back on and stuff like that. And you can't really take them off because we just got this Velcro strap up here at the top. And while you can make it fit snug, I tried rocking it without the top laces just to see what it would be like, and they were just flopping all over the place. Not really my style. Moving down, we have the little 45-degree strap, I think is what they're calling it now. This wasn't really on a lot of skates back in the day when I skated, but putting it on and using it, I can immediately see why it's on like everything now. It's a really nice feature. It really locks your foot in place without compromising flex at all. I mean, it's down here, so if you're worried about ankle flex, this is not going to affect it at all. That doesn't make sense. There's also some nice backward and forward action on this cuff. You can't see it. I mean, it's very slight. We're talking about, maybe a centimeter or two either direction. Coming down on the boot, they have these little vent things right here, and this is where my first complaint comes in, because I don't think of myself as having a wide foot. I wear Vans fine, I wear Chucks fine, I wear old school Adidas fine. Sometimes my toes get a little bit bunched up in the Adidas, but not really a big deal. About right here, the widest part of my foot on the pinky side just gets pinched to hell. Like, it hurts after a couple hours of rolling. And I think theoretically, if they had taken this little vent, you can see it's a little bit flexy here, and moved it about an inch up, I don't think this would have been an issue. And I know that may not be the most ideal place for a foot vent this far up on the boot, but having a comfortable feeling skate is a little bit more important, in my opinion, than getting some minimal airflow through the side of your foot. Next thing, going on down, we have the sole plates. And these things are huge. They got a real nice royale groove in them. The bolts that hold them on are sunk down pretty deep. I thought when I looked at them that it was going to be one big piece and then the frames just kind of go on top. A lot of skates are like that, but these are actually two separate pieces. So far they slide really nice. I've been mainly skating them on curbs and stuff. And yeah, no real complaints. I mean, they slide good. Next, going down, we have the blank frame. I've seen some people complaining that they don't think the bolts are sunk enough in this, but I don't think they're looking at it close enough, and here's why. Just looking at it, it looks like it's just a straight frame, but what we actually have is down here on the bottom, I want to say maybe inch, maybe 3/4 inch, the frame actually bevels out a little bit, like it rounds out, kind of like you see on like a K2 frame or something like that. And then towards the end here, it tapers off. So, and you can really tell after you start doing like a couple sole grinds with this or something. These middle ones, where the bolts are sunk pretty nice and deep, are going to be totally protected by that side of the frame. It's going to take a long time to wear down that side of the frame. And then again, with the taper off here, these bolts don't need to be sunk in as deep. They just don't. Again, pretty fast sliding. It's probably, and again, it's been years since I've been exposed to this stuff, but it's probably the fastest stock frame I've ever rolled on. And bonus, it's decently tough. Again, I've been skating mostly ledges and stuff like that, concrete as it were, and after a good couple hours of skating, there's only really like a minimal groove starting to happen here. And it was a fresh ledge that I was skating, so when you start skating a fresh ledge, sometimes you gotta just take some plastic off of your frames before it'll start sliding nice. Such was the case when I was skating with these. And there's still plenty of plastic here. Like, I don't feel like I damaged the frame in any way by having to leave some of it on the curb. Let's talk about the wheels next. These outer ones, the 58mm 88A hydrogens, they seem okay to me so far. The bearings that they put in these are super fast. Like, given it had been a long time since I skated, but I was feeling like Bambi on the ice when I first hopped on these things, man. They are fast sliding bearings. And then on the inside, we have these little anti-rockers. I thought that they were going to be your standard urethane anti-rockers. They're not. They're hard plastic. On one hand, I'm a little bit disappointed because when I change wheels, I'm going to have to go and buy a set of 8 new bearings. But on the other hand, because they're hard plastic, when you start grinding and stuff, they're going to develop their own sort of grooves. If you guys have been around for a while, you probably remember the Higgs boson anti-rockers back in the day. And now they had little grooves on the sides of the wheels. This is basically the same thing, except you got to grind your own grooves in. If you look real close there, you can see you just grind them in. The last thing I want to talk about in this first little bit, and it slipped my mind because it's not immediately visible to the eye, but there's a shock absorber in the back here. Based off the stair sets and stuff that I've jumped so far, these things work awesome. I can't feel them in there. It's not like back in the day when your foot was like this because you had to jam a whole bunch of shock absorbers in the bottom. This thing sits flat with the boot and it works like a charm. It's a fantastic addition. I think they should put it on all their skates. I don't know why it's not on the new Jack, except maybe to justify spending more money for this one, which is kind of lame. So that's it. Great amount of grinding space for whatever you want to do. Great shock absorber in the back. The boot I wish was a little bit wider, or again they moved that vent thing because these things are pinching the hell out of my feet. Don't surprised if in the second part of this video you see a dremelled out part on that part of the boot. I'm also expecting the cuff to start flexing a little bit more. From what everybody says, these take a little bit of time to break in, but we'll keep at it, see what happens. Alright, here I am back with part 2 of this review, the Rollerblade Solo Team 2016s. You can see since the first part of the video I've changed the wheels and frames. This is the Kaiser Aero and some undercover 76s. They're the ones with the deer on them, the purple. The blank frames that came with these are actually pretty nice. I got a pair of TRS Tressitor 2s and I put those frames on there, still same stock wheels, stock bearings, all that stuff. And I like them quite a bit. I would never, ever, ever, ever ride them flat rocker, which is unfortunate because that seems to be kind of the way my taste is going. But they're really stout, really strong frame. They slide fantastic. The one Allen key thing on the one side is pretty cool. If they tried to make a solid flat rocker frame and kept the same groove on the H block and all that, I would totally be down to rock it. It's cheaper than basically everything else out there on the market, and it slides just as good as anything else. So I mean, why pay more? Also, man, the liner on these things, the blank liners, are fantastic. Like, I just want them in every skate. When I got the Tressidors, they came with a stock liner, and it was a total piece of shit. TRS liners were kind of known for being total pieces of shit, and it was flopping around my foot, you know, all kind of weird ways, and it just didn't feel very comfortable or secure or really anything you look for. But as soon as I pulled out this liner and stuck it in there, man, it was like a completely different ball game. I still wish that they had like a 45-degree strap to keep your foot a little bit more in place, but with a lace-up liner like this, it really negates a lot of the need for one, just because it's a whole other layer of keeping your foot secure. And you know, that's the reason that soft boots rock, you know, because you can get so precise with the way that you lace them up, especially a lot of the taller soft boots. I've seen people use 2 pairs of laces, like one for, I should show you here, one for like the bottom of your foot and then one for up here. And that really lets you fine tune stuff. So recommend that if you haven't tried it on your soft boot skates. But the reason I ended up putting the arrows and the undercover wheels on them was when I got the Tressidors, I just like them for doing street and park shit a whole lot more. Reason being, I thought I was gonna be a fan of the humongous fucking sole on these. And you can see it's giant, but it's so like unnatural feeling is the only way I can describe it. You think you have more sole space, so like locking on soles is going to be a lot easier, but you almost have to like overcompensate because the frame is shifted a little bit to the side, like what you'd consider the negative side,
So when you're locking on sole tricks, you really, again, like have to overcompensate and like lean a little bit farther and make sure you have this giant boat-like mass on the right side of the fucking rail. Whereas, you know, something a little bit more, I don't want to say conservative, that might be the right word, but like, you know, TRS or the New Jacks, it just feels so much more natural. Like when you picture a sole trick in your head and you say, okay, I need to go make my feet do that. That's really what it is in those type of skates. And no, they don't have, you know, the hugest sole on them, but, you know, because of that, it just feels a lot more natural. You know, everything's a lot more close and compact, and it just feels better. I also ended up, I was having problems with the side of my foot right there, and it still pinches a little bit, but it's not nearly as bad as when I first got them. It's not a deal breaker on the skates at all. What is a deal breaker is just, and I knew that this was going to be a problem. I let the internet talk me into these skates is basically what happened. But just this whole like big hard boot thing, man, I'm not really a fan of it. It just, it feels so constricting and not in a good way. You know, it's not like it controls your foot in the same way a soft boot does, you know, where you have like a little bit of give here and there, but it'll still keep you nice and snug and in place. This is like having, you know, walls all around there. And it is pretty heavy. Again, that's not really a deal breaker for me. Like, you just get stronger legs after a couple months. It's not a huge deal. In theory, I thought that they were going to still work out and be a pretty good power blading setup. You know, with the giant soles, if you're trying to do like a topside or something like that. In theory, I thought, well, you know, the giant soles, maybe if I, you know, overshoot it a little bit, I'll still catch on there because I got like 17 fucking inches of plastic coming out of the right side of my foot. So, you know, whatever. But the downside to a skate like this being used for a purpose like that is there are just so many parts on this thing. It's annoying. Like, each sole plate has 4 bolts that hold it into place, the tiny Allen key ones. And then, you know, you got your UFS bolts, and then your frame bolts, and then your cuff bolts, and then, you know, these straps have bolts. And after a good 20, 30 miles, something like that, shit just starts to rattle loose. And there's not really anything that you can do about it. And it sucks. Because, you know, if your bolts aren't that tight and you go to try to lock on a grind or something like that, that little bit of flex and give that you get from the sole plate not being firmly in place is just going to wreck your slide. Like, you're going to go about that far, you know, assuming like your balance is in the right place and stuff. It just steals all the energy, you know, that you're trying to place in this very specific way. And also, you know, if you're going to be putting a lot of miles on shit, you can't be worried about your shit falling apart from just the vibration. Like, it's not really like a mild concern, you know, in that context. You know, I mean, shit's only going to get worse. You know, the more you use it, the more you tighten them down, the more they vibrate out. They're going to vibrate out faster the next time. I think maybe this comes down to just the fact that a lot of skates now, they work great for a very particular style. If I just wanted to go hit grinds all the time, and I was skating about, you know, 6 feet up to a rail or a ledge or whatever it was, these would probably be great. You know, I'd be super glad to have interchangeable sole plates, you know, that are already super thick and all that shit. And, you know, keeping my bolts tight wouldn't be that really big of a deal because, again, I'd be skating maybe half mile total, maybe, just kind of hitting this spot over and over again. You go to a different spot and you hit it over and over again, and, you know, try to do different switch ups or whatever 2003 shit you're trying to do. But for just a good all around skate, this is not that. This is not that. So I've decided to sell them. I actually had to record this video now when I did because I'm shipping out later today. What I'm getting in their place makes me a total hypocrite, but I'll probably try to justify it at some point. So stay tuned for that. Rollerblade solos, if you are just super into grinds and shit like that, you like the hard boot, totally for you. If you're trying to do anything else outside of that, just get something else.